makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
A few days ago, we were treated to the Hunger Games-like spectacle of teachers in South Dakota in the middle of a hockey game, playing this game in which they basically have to stuff themselves with $5,000 in cash. It was incredibly humiliating, incredibly demeaning, and I believe the hockey team that sponsored this has now apologized for the absolutely terrible optics and really the fact that teachers have to resort to this kind of demeaning type of games in the middle of a hockey game. Just goes to show you how badly funded, badly paid teachers are in the US. So there was a discussion about this on Rising, and I know I've made a number of very, very critical videos about Rising, but they had Briahna Joy Gray on, and she completely destroyed the conservative argument given by Rising's co-host Robbie Soave. Now, I know that I'm also not a big fan of Briahna Joy Gray, but I thought this was a really, really good debunking of really just the lack of any, even a gram of empathy by conservatives. And Robbie Soave is right now the Hill's resident conservative to the plight of working people. So first I'm going to show the original video. This was the Dash for Cash competition, and yeah, it's the US is by 2030 or 2040. I would not be surprised if like the Hunger Games or the Squid Games were real in some way. Just imagine how desperate you have to be to participate in that. And, this is $5,000. And there's how many of them? One, two, three, four. None of them will get probably more than 800, 900, probably less. So if you told me to do that for $600, $700, which is probably in practice how much they manage to get from it, because obviously they're gonna be able to grab all of it. I'd be like, no, fuck you, no way. But I'm not desperate for that money, whereas these people are. So the more you need money to survive, and these are people who probably maybe have families, maybe have kids. Every single dollar counts. The more that you push them into accepting things that are more demeaning and humiliating, and that kind of is the premise of Squid Game. If you saw it, I thought the best part of Squid Game, I didn't think it was that original. I thought it was enjoyable. I thought especially the episode with the marble game, I thought was really good. But I really liked, even though maybe it's the more boring episode, I think the most realistic one is actually the second episode, the one where they're all maybe I shouldn't spoil it, but yeah, if you've seen it, the second episode is one in which nothing major happens, but the situation which involves the characters, I think, is actually more realistic because it tells you about that desperation and why they make the decisions that they make. So let's now watch the reaction, and I'm not going to show the whole video, obviously, but first she's discussing this with Ryan Grimm, and obviously Ryan Grimm is left leaning, so they're pretty much agreeing on everything. But then Robbie steps in, and you're going to see the argument that he makes, which is absolutely preposterous. And remember, this is if you made this case 40 years ago, even as a Republican, you'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what the hell? Because there was once a time where right-wingers realized that well-paid teachers are good for society. They're good for the strength of the nation. But now, because we live in the neoliberal era, where everything is freaking commoditized, when it's not obvious that a teacher produces anything in a market system, because really the product of teaching is not obvious. You can't sell it immediately. Then they have no value in this market system, and that's why they're underpaid, overworked, and just not treated with the type of respect in society than they should, because teachers are quite possibly, along with doctors, the most important people in our society in terms of the value added that they give to society, even though, like I said, you can't see the gains until much later. So let's just watch this exchange because it was really good. And like I said, I have a lot of criticism of Briahna Joy Gray. I am not a fan of her in any way. But in this video, I think the Briahna that could be appears, and it was a delight to see this.
Isn't the okay? So to attempt to portray the other side of this, or where someone who doesn't quite share the enthusiasm for this policy you two have, I absolutely, it should be easier to become a teacher. You shouldn't need 80 trillion advanced degrees and like 10 years of college debt to become a teacher.
You just need one, Robbie. You just need a 4-year degree, sometimes a master's. But those 4-year degrees, even from not especially prestigious institutions, are extremely expensive. Even state schools are extremely expensive. People have tried to frame this as an issue of elite colleges, but what, 0.3% of all college graduates in America go to Ivy League schools? Many of those people become teachers and public servants, by the way. But never mind. Huge parts of our working class, white-collar jobs and blue-collar jobs require these kinds of degrees. We live in an economy that does, and just like we have free high school because we evolved into an economy that required that level of education, people shouldn't be going into deep debt or any debt at all, I would argue, to get the basic educational requirements that allow our country to thrive.
But they also don't have to. You can become a teacher without going into debt. If you become a teacher, public school teachers it's not a lucrative salary, it's not a bad salary either. The benefits are quite good, the job security is quite good, the hours are pretty good. Education spending is, despite what we just saw in that ridiculous video, right? The federal government is literally giving like every school district $4,000 per student right now for COVID relief payment. Like, schools have the cash. They're not laying off teachers. They can pay teachers more even if they want to right now. Money is not the education problem. I get that people the debt.
So this is really stupid because he's basically saying money is not a problem. Right now, in these exceptional circumstances where you're getting some exceptional money as a result of COVID relief, not in, every other year. And I'm still not quite sure that this extra money going into schools from the COVID bills is necessarily reflecting itself in teacher pay. I mean, you just had to see that video. Why would you do that stunt if you were a well-paid teacher? This is ridiculous. And also, schools do have to have a good standard of what teachers, this is a skilled profession. You can't just graduate from high school and expect that you'll be teaching high school. You know what I mean? You have to have some higher degree. That's the purpose of an education degree. It's not just anyone who can do this.
Is a separate issue, but our teachers are generally they're not starving in terms of their wages. They're just not.
So basically, by the conservative logic in the neoliberal era, if you're not starving, you're okay. You shouldn't complain. You don't like the U.S.? Go to North Korea. Go to Somalia. Then you'll appreciate the breadcrumbs that you get when useless fucking bankers earn millions for doing nothing that is positive to society. That is the conservative logic.
Robbie, you have to go to college to become a teacher. And most people would argue that that's a good thing because they want their kids to be taught by people who have had at least a little bit more advanced education than the teacher is getting from their own.
I just want my kids actually taught by people in person. Would be.
So look at how stupid he is. Look how now he has to regurgitate another right-wing talking point. The fact that, some school, so you're not having in-person classes. So he has to shift to that. He's pivoting right there. He's not addressing the point that he originally made, that you didn't need a degree to teach. Now he's going I just want my teacher to be. So you're fine with having a complete incompetent as a teacher. as long as they're there in person, this is a very, very, very weird argument to make. But it's not an argument, it's a pivot.
Would be my main desire for the school system. Like, someone watch my kid for. I don't have children, but I would want someone to watch my kid in a space other than my kitchen. Would be like my main requirement of the education system right now.
I understand that parents are concerned first and foremost about some of those first level COVID-related issues, but they're also, as we saw in Virginia, very concerned about the fact that their kids need to be getting a level of education in high school that will prepare them for the rest of their life. Whether that's going on to a vocational education, which, by the way, saddles people with an enormous amount of debt, or whether they're going on to a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, both of which, again, saddle their kids with a great deal of debt. And teachers absolutely are required to get a college degree, the same as social workers and other professions that require master's degrees additionally. And the fact of the matter is, teacher salaries are low. Most teachers earn less than $60,000 a year. Why do I know that? Because part of Bernie's plan for president, a part of his platform, was that every teacher in America should make a minimum of $60,000 a year, which I would argue is the bare minimum for a group that has such an important job as they do. I don't think teachers should be scrounging around on the ground for school supply money, and I don't think they would be doing that and performing those kind of undignified feats just for ish and giggles, as they say. I think that they do it because they're under real constraints. And if we care just from a purely electoral standpoint about earning votes and winning votes in an election year, Republicans have absolutely no problem giving tax breaks to upper middle class people, tax breaks for business owners. We see Democrats right now championing the SALT tax break, which is $250 million for upper middle class people, but absolutely putting their foot down over 44 million Americans. From an electoral perspective, let's just really sit with that for a moment. 44 million Americans have student loan debt. 44 million Americans who, per the Democrats who like to crow and brag about this, are disproportionately Democrats, right? The Democratic base is disproportionately college educated. So the Democratic Party is saying to that very group that they need to come enthusiastically to turn out for them in midterms, we are going to screw you during an election year. And while Donald Trump was the person who turned the spigot off and allowed you to have this relief over the past 2 years, that I can tell you firsthand experience was probably the biggest financial relief for me in my entire life as someone who doesn't have kids, who doesn't have a mortgage, who hasn't been able to afford a mortgage in part because of my student loan debt, right?
So this bit is where I'm genuinely curious. She makes a lot of money from Patreon because her podcast Bad Faith has a fuck ton of Patreon subscribers. I'm not quite sure she's short on money, as she's kind of claiming here. But anyway.
This has been the best financial thing that's happened to a lot of middle-class people in this country. And now it's going to be a Democrat, Joe Biden, the one that turns it on in an election year for 44 million voters.
And so, Briahna, there's a lot of concern expressed from kind of saying that this is an...
And no more words from Robbie. Suave. Not so suave there, buddy. Yeah, I really, really, really liked this reply. It was very well spoken. It was, to the point. The fact is he didn't even make a single factual claim. The very premise that that teachers don't require a college degree, that it's optional, that they choose to do it, is really it's wrong, because it is a requirement, I suspect, in a lot of for a lot of teacher positions, if not most. And two, it's just like, what is the quality of teachers that you want? He doesn't care about education quality. He said it himself. He doesn't care about education quality. All he wants is his fictional, not unborn yet kids to go to the fictional school, brick and mortar school, when they are eventually born. That's what he wants. And this isn't a standard practice. This is clearly a COVID issue. So why is he turning an issue that is about the state of teaching in general, and the state of teacher pay and teacher living conditions as a whole, he's turning it into merely the talking points relevant to the current pandemic, and which clearly will be temporary. Maybe they'll prolong itself for another year because of Omicron or whatever. But come on, this is not going to be the state of teaching for the rest of his life. So he can be assured that in 5 years down the line, whenever he finds, some other dumb fuck conservative to marry and have kids with, they'll be able to send them to a school, a physical school. I have no doubt about that. But just the lack of empathy is just so disgusting, And these people do not care at all about the plight of people who are struggling. They don't care. Empathy is not in the conservative genes. It's just not there. And you know, I genuinely think it never was. But at least there was a time before the neoliberal era that conservatives at least thought in the premise of national, you know, greatness, national glory, and a good education system and well-paid teachers was relevant to that national glory. That is why you had a lot of, you know, very nationalistic countries back in the day promote education. You know, very right-wing governments. So this is just, you know, in the neoliberal era, the only thing that matters is money. The country can go to hell. All that matters is money. And the value that you provide to society is the value that you can demonstrate with your output in like an immediate term. What does a teacher produce? And the answer is nothing, because a teacher is not a service. It is not a good. It is not an economic agent. That is why in this society that values the market, the market price of everything, is why teachers are deemed so worthless. But yeah, he got owned. He got absolutely owned. And you know, the funny thing is, you know, Rising is a show that I've criticized. In fact, my previous video was partly on their sympathies for white supremacists. I don't think Rising is or Breaking Points, because they're kind of the same thing. I don't think these are shows that are not worth watching. I just think you need to really understand what the end game of some of these hosts are, right? And you know, as long as you watch them with the understanding that left and right populists don't in fact want the same thing, once you get that in your head, you can watch it. You're fine. You'll see through the bullshit. But I'll give something to Robbie Soave. At least he's open about his conservatism, and I think that makes him slightly better than Kim fucking Iverson, who I can't stand, and who it's a shame that she wasn't involved in this segment, because I would have loved to see her take on this. Maybe, you know, spin it in some way to promote some right-wing talking point, because that's what she always does. You know, take left-wing concerns and turn them into a stir fry of right-wing talking points. So yeah, it's a shame we didn't get to see her arguments here. But yeah, I think she's worse than Robbie Soave. I do think she's worse, because at least Robbie Soave is upfront about what he believes, however shit ideology that is, and however immoral and unethical and you know, just complete lack of empathy. At least he's upfront about this, whereas Kim Iverson isn't. So that was a bit of a long rant, but I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you do, please like, please share. Most importantly, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.